The scanning array beeped 3 times before Halris noticed. He had spent the last 14 hours reviewing ancient star charts, cross-referencing coordinates that were older than most civilizations in the galaxy. The HFY Empire had lost many things over 30 millennia, but nothing hurt quite like losing the Eternity Fall. That ship represented the peak of their technological achievement, a vessel so advanced that even now, with all their progress, they could not recreate it. The beep came again. Halris turned from the charts and activated the display. His breathing stopped. There, buried beneath layers of electromagnetic interference and primitive radio chatter, sat the unmistakable energy signature of HFY quantum cores. The Eternity Fall still existed. After 30,000 years, it was still generating power. Subcommander Rena, get in here, Halris spoke into the comm system. Rena arrived within moments, her face curious. She looked at the display and her eyes widened. Is that real? Run it through every verification protocol we have, Halris ordered. 3 hours later, they had their answer. The Eternity Fall rested on the third planet of this unremarkable yellow star system. The same planet where, according to ancient records, primitive creatures had barely learned to control fire. The HFY survey team from 30,000 years ago had cataloged them as potential future sapients, nothing more. What are the current readings from that planet? Halris asked. Rena pulled up the data. Her face showed confusion. Commander, this cannot be correct. The planet shows advanced civilization markers, satellite networks, fusion reactors, even early quantum communications. The primitives developed technology. Halris felt something between amusement and concern. It appears so, Commander. They call themselves humans now. They have divided their world into nation-states and have established colonies on their moon and neighboring planets. Halris considered this. 30,000 years was a long time, even for pre-industrial species. Still, they would be children compared to the HFY. Open a communication channel, standard Imperial protocol. The message transmitted across the void. Within minutes, a response came back, not in the expected fearful tones or confused babbling, but in perfect HFY standard language. Greetings, visitors. We are the United Human Council. We have received your claim regarding the vessel beneath New Delhi. We would very much like to discuss this matter. Please send representatives to Orbital Station Gateway for negotiations. Halris read the message twice. These humans had translated HFY language perfectly. They knew about the Eternity Fall, and they wanted to negotiate, not simply obey. Interesting, Rena murmured. They show no fear. They will learn respect soon enough, Halris said. Prepare a shuttle. We will hear what these humans have to say before we reclaim what is ours. The gateway station impressed Halris more than he wanted to admit. It spun gracefully in orbit, generating artificial gravity through rotation rather than the more advanced gravitic fields. Primitive, yes, but elegantly designed. Docking procedures went smoothly, and soon Halris found himself in a conference room that smelled faintly of something called coffee. A human woman waited for them. She appeared middle-aged by their standards, with graying hair and calm eyes. Commander Halris, Subcommander Rena, welcome. I am Dr. Amy Foster, representing Earth's interests in this matter. You speak our language well, Halris noted. We have had considerable time to study it, Foster replied, gesturing for them to sit. We discovered your ship 200 years ago during underground construction in New Delhi. Our linguists have been working with your databases ever since. Then you understand that vessel belongs to the HFY Empire, Halris stated. We have come to retrieve it. Foster nodded slowly. We understand your claim. However, the situation is complex. The Eternity Fall sits 100 meters beneath one of our largest cities. 12 million people live directly above it. Moving the ship would require evacuating the entire metropolitan area and could cause catastrophic structural collapse. That is unfortunate but irrelevant, Halris said. The ship is ours by law and right. Your people built their city in the wrong location. They built that city 3,000 years ago, Commander. They had no way of knowing what lay beneath. Foster leaned forward. We propose a joint archaeological expedition. Work together to safely excavate the ship over several years. During that time, we can study it together, share knowledge, and ensure no lives are lost in the process. Halris felt his patience thinning. We are not archaeologists, Dr. Foster. We are the rightful owners reclaiming stolen property. We stole nothing. Foster's voice remained calm but firm. We found a relic buried in our soil and treated it with respect. We learned from it, yes. We studied your culture and history. Did you know your ancestors were explorers and scientists? The records in that ship paint a very different picture of the HFY than what we see today. You dare lecture me about my own people, Halris stood. You have 72 hours to evacuate the area around our ship. After that, we will extract it by force if necessary. Casualties will be unfortunate but unavoidable. Foster stood as well. She looked sad rather than angry. Commander, humanity has spent 30,000 years evolving on one of the harshest worlds in this sector. We survived ice ages that buried continents. We endured plagues that killed half our population. We fought wars that nearly destroyed us completely. Each time we learned. We adapted. We became stronger. What is your point? Halris asked coldly. My point is that we are not the primitives your ancestors cataloged. We are not children to be ordered about. We are a species that has earned our place in this galaxy through suffering and perseverance. Foster walked to the viewport looking down at Earth. We hoped you would be reasonable. We wanted to work together. But if you insist on taking that ship by force, you will discover that humanity protects its home very, very well. Halris laughed. You threaten the HFY Empire with your handful of primitive vessels. We have 47 warships in this fleet alone. Then I suppose we will see who underestimated whom, Foster said quietly. 72 hours, Commander. Use them wisely. As Halris and Rena returned to their shuttle, Rena spoke carefully. Commander, perhaps we should consider their offer. The humans seem more advanced than expected. They are still primitives playing with technology they barely understand, Halris replied. Ready the fleet for extraction operations. If they interfere, we will show them the price of defiance. What Halris did not know, what he could not know, was that every word of the conversation had been broadcast across Earth. Billions of humans watched as their representatives stood firm against alien demands. In orbital factories, weapon systems that had been dormant for decades quietly powered up. On the moon, rail guns that had supposedly been decommissioned for 20 years rotated toward space. Throughout the solar system, humanity prepared for something they had long feared but always expected. First contact had come at last, and it was nothing like the hopeful scenarios humanity had imagined. But they were ready nonetheless. 72 hours remained. 60 hours after the failed negotiation, Halris watched his fleet assume formation above the Indian subcontinent. New Delhi sprawled beneath them, a massive city glowing with lights even in daylight. Somewhere below those streets and buildings, buried under concrete and soil, waited the eternity fall. Gravitic anchors are positioned, reported the tactical officer. We can begin extraction on your command. Halris studied the display. Human vessels had maintained a respectful distance, making no aggressive moves. Perhaps Foster's threats had been empty after all. Begin the operation, slowly. I want minimal surface disruption. The fleet's largest ships extended invisible fields of gravitational force downward. Deep underground, sensors detected the eternity fall and locked onto its mass. Slowly, carefully, they began to pull. On the surface, the ground trembled. In apartments and offices across New Delhi, people felt a strange vibration through their feet. Some ignored it. Others, remembering the warnings, began moving toward designated safe zones. Contact, Rena announced. Human vessels are approaching. 23 ships, mixed civilian and military configuration. Only 23, Halris felt relieved. Maintain extraction. Combat division, establish defensive perimeter. 12 HFY warships broke formation, positioning themselves between the extraction team and the approaching humans. Their weapons came online, targeting systems tracking every human vessel. A communication request came through. Admiral Richard Torres appeared on screen, an older human male with gray hair and tired eyes. Commander Halris, you need to stop this operation immediately. Admiral Torres, you need to withdraw your ships before someone gets hurt, Halris replied. We are here to protect our home, Torres said calmly. You are threatening millions of lives with this extraction. The structural damage alone could collapse buildings across 3 city districts. Then you should have evacuated them as instructed, Halris said. This is your final warning. Withdraw or be destroyed. Torres sighed. We tried peaceful resolution, Commander, remember that. The channel closed. Halris frowned. The humans maintained their approach but made no hostile moves. Their formation was defensive, almost cautious. Fire a warning shot, Halris ordered. Show them we are serious. The nearest HFY destroyer unleashed a plasma lance, the kind of weapon that could vaporize a city block. It streaked toward the lead human vessel, a cruiser designated the HFY Perseverance. The beam hit the ship's shields and dispersed harmlessly into space. What? Halris leaned forward. Analysis. Their shielding absorbed the full impact, the tactical officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. Energy signature suggests quantum-level dispersion fields. That technology should not exist in a species this young. Increase power, full weapons spread, Halris commanded. Before his fleet could fire, one of his younger captains acted independently. The destroyer launched a full barrage at the nearest human ship. Multiple plasma weapons and kinetic missiles streaked toward the target. The human vessel's point defense systems activated. Missiles exploded harmlessly against shield walls. Plasma dispersed before reaching the hull, and then the human ship returned fire. 3 precise shots. No missiles, no plasma, just concentrated beams of energy that struck the HFY destroyer's weapon systems, engine clusters, and shield generators. In seconds, the ship went dark, drifting but intact. Damage report from the Valiant, Rena called out. All primary systems offline, hull intact, no casualties. Halris stared at the display. The humans had completely disabled a military warship without killing anyone. That required precision and restraint that most civilizations did not develop until after centuries of warfare. All ships defensive formation, Halris ordered. Too late. 3 more HFY vessels attempted to engage the human fleet. Each one was systematically disabled within minutes. The human weapons targeted joints, power conduits, and thruster assemblies with surgical accuracy. Every hit calculated to disable without destroying. They are not trying to kill us, Rena whispered. They are showing off, Halris growled. All ships concentrated fire on their flagship. The remaining HFY warships opened fire as one. The Perseverance vanished behind a wall of explosions and energy beams. Halris felt satisfaction. No shield could withstand that much firepower. When the smoke cleared, the Perseverance remained. Its shields glowed bright orange from the heat, flickering at the edges but holding against firepower that should have reduced it to atoms. Torres spoke again, his voice broadcast to the entire HFY fleet. Attention HFY vessels, we do not want to fight you. We do not want casualties on either side, but we will defend our home. This is your last chance to withdraw peacefully. Never, Halris transmitted back. Continue extraction. All combat vessels press the attack. The battle intensified. HFY ships pushed forward, weapons blazing. Human vessels gave ground slowly, shields absorbing tremendous punishment. But for every human ship that took damage, 2 HFY vessels went dark. Then the orbital platforms activated. What Halris had assumed were commercial stations and civilian habitats suddenly lit up with weapons fire. Dozens of massive installations that orbited Earth revealed their true purpose. Railguns fired solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Laser arrays designed to deflect asteroids swiveled toward warships. Missile clusters that supposedly had been decommissioned launched swarms of intelligent munitions. The HFY fleet found itself in a crossfire. 5 ships were destroyed in the opening barrage, their shields overwhelmed before crews could react. The debris field spread across Earth orbit, a grim reminder of the cost of underestimation. "All ships retreat," Halris ordered, fighting withdrawal to high orbit. His fleet tried to comply, but human vessels pressed their advantage. They did not pursue for kills, instead focusing on disabling ships attempting to flee. More HFY vessels went dark, their crews helpless but alive. "Commander, we have lost over half the fleet," Rena reported, her voice shaking. 17 ships destroyed, 12 disabled, 8 heavily damaged. How? Halris could not comprehend it. How does a species this young have such technology? Tors appeared on screen again, his expression grim but not triumphant. "Commander Halris, I am offering one final chance. Surrender now. We will provide medical aid to your wounded and safe harbor for your ships. No more need to die today." Halris looked at his tactical display, his fleet in ruins, Earth's defenses barely scratched, the extraction operation abandoned. Everything had gone wrong so quickly. He thought about activating the Eternity Fall remotely. Its weapons could still function even buried underground. He could strike back, hurt these humans, show them the price of defiance. Then Foster's face appeared beside Tor's on the screen. She stood in New Delhi, directly above the ancient ship. "Commander, I am broadcasting from Ground Zero. If you activate that vessel, you will kill 12 million people, including me. I trust you will not make that choice." Her calm certainty broke something in Halris. She was not afraid. She trusted that he would not become a mass murderer for the sake of pride. "All HFY vessels cease fire," Halris transmitted. "I am surrendering to human authority." The battle stopped. The medical bay on the human station smelled strange. Antiseptic mixed with something organic that Halris could not identify. He sat on an examination table while a human doctor checked him for injuries. Physical wounds healed quickly, but his pride might never recover. Admiral Tors entered without ceremony, carrying 2 cups of the beverage humans called coffee. "The doctor says you are fine. Drink this. It helps." Halris accepted the cup cautiously. The liquid was hot and bitter. "Why are you being kind to me? I tried to destroy your city." "Because being cruel serves no purpose." Tors sat down across from him. "We won. That is enough." "Your species is strange," Halris muttered. "Any other civilization would parade us as prisoners, display us as trophies." "We are not any other civilization." Tors sipped his coffee. "Dr. Foster will be here soon. She wants to show you something." Foster arrived carrying a data tablet. She looked tired but satisfied. "Commander, I want to show you what we learned from your ship, not the technology, the history." She activated the tablet. Ancient HFY text appeared, logs from 30,000 years ago. "These are the personal journals of the Eternity Falls crew. Did you know they survived the crash?" Halris sat up straighter. "They survived. The official record said the ship and crew were lost." "The ship was lost to your empire," Foster explained. "But the crew lived. They had no way to send messages home. The damage to their quantum communications array was too severe, so they did what any explorers would do. They observed. They learned. They tried to understand the world they were stranded on." She showed him entries written by the ship's science officer. detailed observations of early human tribes, notes about tool use, language development, social structures. Your ancestors were not conquerors, Commander. They were scientists. They were genuinely excited to study my species. Another entry appeared, this one from the ship's captain. Today I taught a group of humans how to preserve food using salt. They shared their knowledge of local plants in return. The cultural exchange is fascinating. I wish we could send word home, but we have accepted our situation. Perhaps we can do good here, help these remarkable creatures develop. Halris read through more entries, years of observations, decades of gentle guidance. The crew teaching early humans medicine, agriculture, astronomy, never forcing their culture, just offering knowledge when asked. They died here, Foster said softly. The last entry is from the captain, 63 years after the crash. She writes about watching the night sky, hoping the Empire might find them someday. She hoped that when the HFY returned, they would find a thriving human civilization and feel proud of what their lost crew helped create. Why are you showing me this? Halris felt something tighten in his chest. Because we want you to understand who your people were, Foster met his eyes. We have been studying HFY history through your ship's database. You were once explorers and teachers. You spread knowledge and culture across the galaxy. But sometime in the last 30,000 years, something changed. You became conquerors instead. Rena entered the room, escorted by a human guard. She looked at the tablet over Halris's shoulder and began reading. Her expression shifted from confusion to wonder to grief. We never learned any of this, Rena whispered. Our histories talk about lost ships but never about their crews, never about their missions. Because the empire you built no longer values exploration, Tor said. It values expansion, control, domination, but that was not always true. Halris set down the tablet. What do you want from us? We want to work together, Foster replied. The excavation will take years, maybe decades. During that time, we can share knowledge, cultural exchange, learn from each other the way your ancestors once learned from mine. And in return, you help us understand the galaxy you know, Tor said. We are new to space travel. We have questions, enemies we might not know about, opportunities we might be missing. And honestly, we want to learn about the people you used to be, maybe help you remember. A conference was called aboard Gateway Station. Representatives from Earth's major nations gathered with the surviving HFY command staff. The room held tension like a physical presence. Some HFY officers rejected the proposal immediately. Captain Dresk stood and shouted about dishonor and humiliation. We should return home, report this defeat, and return with a proper fleet. Others listened more carefully. Sub-Commander Rena stood and spoke quietly. I have spent my entire life believing the HFY were destined to rule the galaxy, that our strength and technology gave us that right. Today I learned two things. First, strength without wisdom is just violence. Second, we have forgotten why we developed that strength in the first place. She gestured to the viewport where Earth hung blue and beautiful. These humans could have destroyed us. Their weapons are precise enough, but they chose mercy. They chose to disable rather than kill. Why? Because they value life, even the lives of people who threaten them. When did we forget to value that? The debate continued for hours. Eventually, a vote was called. Roughly half the HFY officers agreed to Tor's terms. The other half demanded to return home, to report the defeat and seek reinforcement. Halris had to choose which group he would lead. He looked at Foster, at Tors, at the humans who had every right to hate him but chose understanding instead. He thought about the Eternity Falls crew, dying far from home but proud of the help they gave to a young species. I will stay, Halris announced. I will help with the excavation and the cultural exchange. Those who wish to leave may do so without judgment. 15 ships prepared to depart. carrying officers who could not accept cooperation with the species that defeated them. The rest remained, their crews uncertain but willing to try. As the departing ships vanished into faster-than-light travel, Foster stood beside Halris at the viewport. "They will report everything to your empire. There may be consequences." "I know," Halris said, "but for the first time in my life, I think I am doing what my ancestors would have wanted. That matters more than consequences." "Good," Foster smiled, "because we have a lot of work to do. Excavating that ship safely will require cooperation, trust, and probably a few miracles." "Humanity seems to specialize in those," Halris replied. "We have had a lot of practice," Foster said. The excavation site in New Delhi had transformed into something remarkable. Human engineers worked alongside HFY technicians. Their different approaches to problem-solving creating innovative solutions neither species could have developed alone. Above ground, protective barriers kept curious crowds at a safe distance while allowing them to watch history being uncovered. Halris walked the perimeter every morning, marveling at what 6 months of cooperation had achieved. Buildings had been carefully reinforced or relocated, underground infrastructure rerouted around the dig site, and slowly, centimeter by centimeter, the Eternity Fall was being revealed. "Commander, you should see this," called David Park, a human structural engineer. He stood beside an HFY biologist named Senna, both examining a section of the ship's hull. Halris approached. The exposed metal showed no corrosion despite 30,000 years underground. "What have you found?" "The hull is incorporating minerals from the surrounding soil," Senna explained, her voice excited. "It is actively adapting to preserve itself. This level of material science is beyond even modern HFY technology." "We think we can reverse engineer the process," David added. "Imagine construction materials that self-repair and adapt to environmental stress. This could revolutionize architecture across both our civilizations." "You would share this discovery with the Empire?" Halris asked. "Of course," David looked confused. "Is that not how cooperation works?" 6 months ago, Halris would have found such openness naive. Now he recognized it as strength. Humans shared knowledge freely because they believed abundance was better than scarcity. On the orbital station Harmony, the first cultural exchange program was flourishing. Young HFY scientists learned human research methods, while human students studied HFY theoretical physics. The mixing of ideas produced unexpected breakthroughs. But not everyone was happy about the changes. The HFY officers who returned home had reported everything: the defeat, the cooperation, the suggestion that the Empire had lost its way. The High Council had fractured into factions, hardliners demanding retribution, moderates urging caution, and a small but growing group questioning the Empire's entire direction. Admiral Kresh led the hardliners, a decorated military commander with influence across multiple systems. He saw Earth as a threat that needed to be eliminated. "They defeated a small survey fleet," he told the council. "A proper military response will crush them." "What if they defeat us again?" asked Councillor Myra, a moderate voice. "What if they are truly as advanced as the reports suggest?" "Then we learn from their example and become stronger," said Councillor Venn, one of the reformists, "just as our ancestors would have done." The debate raged for weeks. Eventually, Kresh gained enough political support to act. He assembled a fleet of 200 warships, the largest HFY mobilization in centuries. His intention was clear: make an example of Earth that the entire galaxy would remember. When intelligence reports reached Earth about the incoming fleet, Tors called an emergency meeting. Halris and the cooperative HFY attended alongside human military and civilian leaders. 200 ships, Tors stated flatly. Estimated arrival in 3 weeks. We held off 47 ships with difficulty. This force is more than 4 times that size. I can try to negotiate, Halris offered. Kresh knows me. Perhaps I can reason with him. Kresh does not listen to reason, Rena said quietly. I served under him before this assignment. He believes might makes right. Our cooperation here would only enrage him further. Foster studied the intelligence reports. We need to show him what you have seen here. The cooperation, the discoveries, the truth about your ancestors. He will not care, another HFY officer said. Kresh only respects power. Then we give him a demonstration, Tors replied, but not the kind he expects. Over the next 2 weeks, Earth mobilized everything. Every nation contributed ships and weapons. The lunar defense grid went to full power. Mars recalled its patrol fleets. Hidden construction facilities that had been building ships in secret began moving them into position. Halris worked with Tors and Foster to craft a message. They recorded testimonies from HFY officers who had chosen cooperation. They compiled data showing the joint discoveries and breakthroughs. They included the historical records from Eternity Fall. This message needs to reach every ship in Kresh's fleet, Foster said. Every crew member needs to see the truth. Kresh will block it on his command network, Rena warned. Then we broadcast it on every frequency simultaneously, Tors decided. Make it impossible to block completely. Even if only a few ships receive it, that might be enough. The message was prepared and loaded into communication satellites positioned throughout the solar system. When Kresh's fleet arrived, they would be bombarded with information before a single shot was fired. But everyone knew it might not be enough. In the excavation site, work continued despite the looming threat. David and Senna had made another breakthrough, discovering that the Eternity Falls engines could be reactivated without moving the ship. The quantum cores could provide clean energy to power half of India. We should share this with everyone immediately, David suggested. After we survive the next 3 weeks, Senna replied grimly. Halris found Foster standing alone in the observation deck, watching the excavation below. Are you afraid? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. We might lose everything we have built here. All this cooperation, all these friendships destroyed because one admiral cannot see past his own certainty. You could surrender, Halris said. Give Kresh what he wants. Maybe he would be satisfied. Foster shook her head. You know that is not true. Men like Kresh are never satisfied. They always need another conquest, another victory. If we submit now, it just delays the inevitable. Then we fight. Then we fight, Foster agreed. But we fight for something better than victory. We fight for the chance to prove that cooperation is stronger than conquest, that mercy is not weakness, that your ancestors' way was the right way. That is a lot to prove in one battle, Halris said. Humanity has a saying, Foster smiled sadly. Go big or go home. We have nowhere else to go, so I suppose we must go big. Across the solar system, ships took positions. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Crews prepared for battle while hoping desperately it would not come. And in deep space, Admiral Kresh's fleet drew closer, its commander certain of easy victory and the glory it would bring. The HFY War fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a steel constellation. 200 ships spread across the outer solar system, their weapons systems already charging. On the flagship Domination, Admiral Kresh stood in the command center, reviewing tactical displays with satisfaction. The primitives have positioned their fleet between us and their world, his tactical officer reported. Estimated 83 vessels. They are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. They are fools, Kresh stated. Open a channel, let them hear their doom. The communication broadcast across all frequencies. Attention, Earth. You have defied the HFY Empire and corrupted our people with your backwards philosophy. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation. You have 1 hour to comply. Tors responded from the bridge of the Perseverance. Admiral Kresh, we request dialogue. There are things you need to understand about this situation. There is nothing to discuss, Kresh cut him off. 1 hour, then we demonstrate the price of defiance. The channel closed. Tors looked at his communications officer. Did the message packets deploy? Yes, sir. Broadcasting on every frequency. The HFY fleet is being bombarded with our historical data, testimonials, and evidence. Will Kresh block it? He is trying, the officer smiled slightly. But we are using HFY quantum encryption codes that Commander Halris provided. Their own security protocols are working against them. Throughout Kresh's fleet, crew members were receiving data they were not supposed to see. Young officers read journals from the Eternity Falls crew. Engineers studied schematics showing human HFY cooperative projects. Scientists reviewed research papers published jointly by both species. On the destroyer Relentless, Captain Thora read through the historical records with growing horror. The HFY had once been explorers and teachers. When had they become conquerors? She looked at the order to fire on civilian populations if Earth did not surrender and felt sick. On the cruiser Vengeance, Lieutenant Karn watched video footage of HFY and humans working side by side in the New Delhi excavation. They were laughing together, celebrating a shared discovery. It looked nothing like the occupation scenarios he had been trained for. Across the fleet, similar reactions rippled through crews. Not everyone was swayed, but doubt had been planted. Kresh noticed the data intrusion and roared orders. Block all incoming transmissions. I want communications locked down now. Sir, they are using our own encryption, the communications officer explained nervously. Blocking would require shutting down our entire network. Then do it. Kresh slammed his fist on the console. I will not have my crews contaminated by human lies. The hour passed. Earth's fleet held position, shields raised, weapons ready but not locked on targets. They waited for Kresh to make the first move. All ships advance, Kresh ordered. Battle formation, prepare to engage. The HFY fleet began moving forward. Then Halris's voice broadcast across all channels, speaking in HFY. Brothers and sisters of the Empire, this is Commander Halris. I know many of you have been told that I am a traitor, that I surrendered to primitives and abandoned my duty. I want to tell you the truth. On the Domination, Kresh tried to cut the transmission. His communications officer looked up helplessly. Sir, he is broadcasting from the human flagship. We cannot block it without jamming our own tactical channels. Halris continued. I came here believing we would easily reclaim what was ours. I was wrong, not because the humans were stronger, though they are, but because I misunderstood what we were trying to reclaim. The Eternity Fall does not just contain technology. It contains the truth about who we were before we became conquerors. Video footage appeared on every screen in both fleets. The excavation site. Human and HFY teams working together. The joy on their faces as they uncovered ancient wonders. We were explorers once, Halris said. We sought knowledge, not territory. We offered friendship, not domination. The crew of the Eternity Fall lived that truth. They helped a young species grow and learn. They would be ashamed of what we have become. 17 ships in Kresh's fleet suddenly broke formation. Their captains broadcast messages of support for peace. They refused orders to advance. Traitors, Kresh screamed. All loyal ships destroy those vessels immediately. But other ships did not fire. Crews hesitated, unsure. The unity of the fleet fractured. This is your last chance, Tors broadcast to the entire HFY force. Join us, work with us, learn with us, or fight us and discover that humanity has not spent 30,000 years preparing for nothing. Kresh's face turned purple with rage. All ships still loyal to the Empire fire at will, destroy everything. 83 HFY vessels opened fire, their weapons targeting both the human fleet and their own defector ships. The solar system lit up with weapons fire. Earth's defense fleet engaged immediately, but they were not alone. The 17 HFY defector ships joined them, their crews choosing cooperation over blind obedience. The battle was chaos. Human shields absorbed tremendous punishment while their precision weapons disabled HFY vessels. The defector HFY ships used their knowledge of fleet tactics to devastating effect, targeting command ships and breaking formations. Then more ships arrived, but not more HFY. Vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel bearing the markings of a dozen different species. The Varani, who had lost colonies to HFY expansion. The Holoth, whose trade routes had been seized. The Singing Stones, a crystalline species that communicated through harmonic resonance, who had been enslaved for their mineral-rich bodies. All of them had suffered under HFY imperialism. All of them were willing to stand with humanity. "What is this?" Kresh demanded, staring at his tactical display. "This is what happens when you conquer instead of cooperate," Tors replied. "You make enemies, Admiral. We made friends." The Allied fleet outnumbered Kresh's loyal ships now. The battle turned decisively against the HFY. Vessels surrendered or were disabled. The casualties mounted, but Earth's allies showed the same restraint humans had demonstrated. Disable, do not destroy. Capture, do not kill. Kresh refused to see the inevitable. He ordered his remaining ships to ram Earth itself. "If I cannot have victory, I will have vengeance." But Rena, commanding the defector ship Daybreak, intercepted the domination. Her vessel took catastrophic damage blocking Kresh's suicide run, but human rescue teams extracted most of her crew before the Daybreak exploded. Kresh's ship, damaged and adrift, was boarded by human marines. They found him on the bridge, still screaming orders to a crew that no longer listened. The battle ended not with a final explosion but with silence. Kresh sat in a human detention cell, no longer shouting, just staring at walls that would hold him for the rest of his life. His fleet was scattered, ships surrendered or disabled. The casualties were lighter than anyone had expected, but each lost life weighed heavy. Rena recovered in a medical facility on Gateway Station, her injuries severe but survivable. Halris visited her daily, sitting beside her bed and reading reports about the aftermath. "The HFY High Council is in chaos," he told her. "The hardliners are being removed from power. The moderates and reformists have formed a coalition government. They are asking for peace negotiations." "Good," Rena's voice was weak but determined. "Maybe something good can come from all this." "You saved millions of lives," Halris said, "when you stopped Kresh from reaching Earth." "I did what the old HFY would have done," Rena replied. "I protected instead of conquered. It felt right." The peace negotiations took 3 months. Representatives from the HFY Empire, Earth, and the allied species gathered on neutral ground. The talks were difficult, filled with accusations and demands for justice. But slowly, agreements formed. The HFY Empire would end all expansion. Colonized worlds would be granted independence or partnership status. Reparations would be paid to species harmed by past aggression. And most importantly, the empire would open itself to cultural exchange and cooperation. In return, Earth and its allies agreed to share technology and knowledge. They would help the HFY rebuild their society into something closer to what their ancestors had envisioned. 1 year after the battle, Halris stood in the completed museum built around the Eternity Fall. The ship sat in a massive transparent structure that blended human and HFY architectural styles. Visitors from dozens of species walked through its halls, learning about the crew that had bridged 2 civilizations. Foster joined him at the memorial wall where the crew's names were inscribed. "They would be proud," she said. "Their ship became a symbol of cooperation instead of conquest." "I think they would be surprised," Halris admitted. "They died thinking they were forgotten, Instead, they changed the galaxy. Tors approached, now retired but still consulting on the Earth-Ashari alliance. "We have a situation, not a bad one, but it needs your attention." He showed them a star chart. "One of our deep space probes detected a signal, Ashari origin codes, but from a ship thought lost millennia ago, not the Eternity Fall, another expedition from the same era." Another lost crew. Howris felt his heart race. "The signal is an automated distress call, repeating for thousands of years," Tors explained. "We are organizing a joint rescue mission. Human and Ashari crews working together. We wanted to know if you would lead it." Howris looked at Foster, then at the memorial wall, then back at Tors. "Yes, absolutely yes." The rescue ship departed 3 weeks later. A joint crew of humans, Ashari and volunteers from allied species. They called the vessel Hope's Return, and its mission was simple: find the lost expedition and bring them home, or at least give them the memorial they deserved. As the ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speeds, Howrah stood in the observation deck. David Park joined him, the human engineer who had become one of his closest friends during the excavation. "Nervous?" David asked. "Excited," Howrah admitted. 30,000 years ago, my people explored because we wanted to understand the universe. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. Now we get to remember." "You are not just remembering," David smiled. "You are teaching the next generation. There are 12 Ashari cadets on this ship, learning exploration instead of conquest. And 8 human cadets learning that the galaxy is bigger than one planet," Howrah added. "We both have much to learn." The ship jumped, leaving Earth's solar system behind. In the museum far below, visitors continued to stream through. Ashari children listened to stories about their ancestors who chose teaching over conquest. Human children learned about the species that had once helped their ancient ancestors survive. On a dozen worlds throughout the galaxy, similar exchanges were happening. Ashari scientists worked with human researchers. Human artists collaborated with Ashari musicians. Former enemies became partners, then colleagues, then friends. The galaxy had not become perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still challenges to overcome. But the age of thoughtless conquest had ended. The age of cooperation had begun. In the Ashari capital, the reformed High Council commissioned a monument. It depicted 2 figures, one human and one Ashari, reaching toward each other across a divide. The inscription read, "Strength in unity, wisdom in diversity, hope in cooperation." And deep in space, the Hope's Return traveled toward its distant target. Its crew prepared for whatever they might find, knowing that exploration was about more than discovering new places. It was about discovering new possibilities. Howrah recorded a message to send back to Earth, knowing it would take weeks to arrive. "We are making good progress toward the signal. The crew works well together, learning from each other's differences rather than fearing them. I think this is what my ancestors hoped for when they first ventured into space. Not to conquer or control, but to understand and grow. The Eternity Falls crew gave humanity knowledge when they were stranded. Now our 2 species give each other something more valuable: partnership. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders. We will explore it together." The message ended. The ship continued its journey. Behind them, Earth and the Ashari homeworld orbited their respective stars, connected now by more than treaties and trade agreements. Connected by the understanding that the future belonged to those who chose cooperation over conquest. 30,000 years ago, a ship crashed on Earth. Its crew died far from home but never forgotten. Their legacy was not technology or weapons, but a simple truth. The strongest bonds are built not through force but through friendship. And that truth, once learned, could never be unlearned. The galaxy was changing. Species that had cowered before the Ashari Empire now stood as equals. Humanity, so recently discovered fire in galactic terms, now stood among the stars as both student and teacher. The Ashari, once conquerors, remembered how to be explorers. The age of empire had ended. The age of alliance had begun. And it all started with one ancient ship, buried beneath a city, waiting 30,000 years to teach two species the most important lesson. Together, they could reach heights neither could achieve alone.